Only 15 more days of pressure. నాకు గ్రీన్ దిखाना ना रेड दिखाना ऑन ऑफ का सिस्टम ही नहीं ऑन नहीं गुड इनफ ठीक है ईशा ईशा टीचर्स नहीं ऐसा तो कर वैसे ये माइक मॉनिटर माइक ऑन ही रहना ऑन
अच्छा दो दे दी आप इसको नहीं कर सकते
तो सांस भी दूर टूट गए थे उसके
कोई ना ऐसे कैजुअली ऐसे स्कूल कर लेना इसको
हाँ हाँ हाँ
सिस्टम स्टार्ट में ही है ना?
हाँ स्टार्ट में
We kindly request everyone to take their seats. A gentle reminder to please keep your mobile phones on silent mode.
ये दिखा कुछ भी कर रही है ना वाले
Guys, can you please all settle down fast? I request everybody to kindly settle down and take their respective seats. We'll begin shortly.
Mean it. Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, you Rupa. Okay, okay. How many tea boxes for you guys? 40. 40 tea? 40 tea, 40. 20, 20. Whose tea is in?
where is he going? Oh Mahesh sir
Uh, करा दीजिए करा दीजिए एक चीज ये है पूरा
इनका ब्लैक कॉफी
देखिए काम करिए
नहीं दिया नहीं दिया क्या मैंने पूछा और
मैंने अभी तक वो नहीं तो मिल गया होगा क्योंकि वो थोड़ा ऐसा है
ब्लैक कॉफी का ब्लैक कॉफी है
we will take all these things to the red area and ask them to easy, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all. I, Madhvi Devanandavagari,
And I, Manasvi Sharma.
will be your host for the day. Good morning, esteemed guests, dignitaries, respected faculty members, and dear participants. In just a few minutes, we'll begin the inaugural function of the International Conference on Transcending the Boundaries in Management Education 2025, hosted by XIME Bangalore.
This international conference serves as a platform for thought leaders, academicians, and industry professionals to converse and discuss the latest trends, challenges, and opportunities in management education. The main focus of this conference is to foster global perspectives, quality systems, cross-cultural learning, sustainability, and innovative pedagogical methods to bridge the gap between theory and practice in management education.
This conference is jointly organized by XIME Bangalore and Adelaide Business School, Australia, two esteemed business institutions dedicated to advancing management education globally. XIME Bangalore was founded by Professor J. Philip, a pioneering management educationist, former director of IIM Bangalore, and former dean of XLRE. Professor Philip has also held senior leadership roles, including Senior VP of ITC Limited and President of Indian Society of Training and Development, significantly shaping management education and corporate training in India. XIME was founded in 1991 by Professor J. Philip, was built on the vision to develop ethical and globally competent leaders to establish itself as one of the India's leading business schools. Today, XIME has expanded its footprint to 3 campuses in Bangalore, Kochi, and Chennai, continuing its legacy of excellence in management education.
Adelaide Business School, part of the prestigious University of Adelaide, is known for its cutting-edge research, industry collaborations, and innovative pedagogy. With a strong focus on sustainability, critical thinking, and leadership, it equips students with the skills needed for an evolving global business environment. Together, XIME Bangalore and Adelaide Business School bring a wealth of academic and industry expertise, creating a dynamic platform for thought leaders, academicians, and professionals to explore emerging trends, challenges, and opportunities in management education.
It is an honor to welcome you all to this prestigious gathering, where leaders, academicians, and industry experts come together to discuss the future of management education.
To commence this grand event, we now invite the esteemed dignitaries to take their positions on the dais.
Can we please have Professor Rajiv Gowda, Professor Noel Lindsay, Ambassador C.P. Ravindranathan, Director Roshni James, and Dr. Mahesh.
To begin the proceedings, it is our privilege to invite Dr. Roshni James, Director of XIME Bangalore, to deliver the welcome address. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
Distinguished guests, Professor Rajiv Gowda, Professor Noel Lindsay, Ambassador Professor C.P. Ravindranathan, the conference convener Dr. Mahesh, the keynote speakers, industry leaders, faculty delegates, presenters, and dear students. It's an absolute honor and privilege for me to welcome you all to this international conference on Transcending the Boundaries in Management Education, organized by Xavier Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship in collaboration with Adelaide Business School. I'm really delighted to see we have so many guests attending in person, and some of them will be joining online as well. It is truly my distinct honor and privilege to welcome our esteemed chief guest, Professor Rajiv Gowda. I know sir is quite busy, especially with his responsibility as a party, in his party activities, and also as an academician and his other pursuits. Sir, it has been really kind of you to have accepted, enthusiastically, happily accepted our invitation and has come all the way from Delhi. So we welcome you, sir. Thank you for joining us. A big warm namaste to our Professor Lauren Lindsay, who's come from Australia, and he's a Pro-Vice Chancellor at Adelaide Business School. He's actually literally transcended boundaries, I would say, of nations and even continents to be here. Thank you, sir, and your team for being part of this conference here. I think Rajiv Kamineni, sir, is also here. Welcome you all. At XIME, we have always strived to be at the forefront of innovation in business education. And since its inception in 1991, under the visionary leadership of our chairman, Sir Professor J. Philip, we have continually expanded our horizons in fostering global education and encouraging cross-cultural learning. Sir is not here yet. He has, due to some personal commitments, but I think hopefully by around 11 o'clock, I think Sir should be able to join us. I would also like to welcome our President, Sir, is here, Anil Sir, who is a constant support for all of us. I would also like to welcome Ambassador C.P. Ravindranathan, who is a chairman of XIME Kochi, who is with us today. I really look forward to hearing from him and all the stalwarts that we have here on the stage today. We live in a world where the business models are being rewritten every day. We start from the VUCA to BANI to RUT. I feel even change is changing at a very fast pace these days. Recent statistics which shows that there is no major corporation which has not changed or not fundamentally reorganized itself at least 7 times in the last 50 years. And there is no major university which has undergone a major reorganization even once in the last 50 years, except, of course, in the form of some renaming of the courses and curriculum. Other than that, there has been no major changes. While the corporate world has been undergoing this kind of a seismic shift in the last few decades, universities have remained largely unchanged in their structure and approach. Now, this statistics is actually a good reminder, a stark reminder for all of us to rethink about how we educate the future leaders. We, the management educators, or management education cannot remain stagnant or static when the businesses are moving at such a lightning speed. I think we cannot afford to be teaching businesses using only case studies from the past. In fact, we must be preparing students for the challenges of tomorrow. As Peter Drucker said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's exactly what we are planning to do here today, to create the future of management education. So this conference is about challenging norms, exploring innovation, and rethinking how we prepare the future leaders. So we have technical sessions, we have masterclass, we have paper presentations and panel discussions to encourage experiences and share knowledge between the industry experts and academia. We have received 95 submissions in total under 5 themes, and after a rigorous selection process, we have 36 full papers shortlisted for presentation at the conference. To all the delegates, faculty, researchers, and students here today, we welcome you all and invite you to challenge ideas, ask really bold questions, and rethink how management education should evolve. We will be discussing some of the most critical questions, that is, how do we go about the use of AI and technology in management education? How do we balance quality accreditation together with innovation? And also about creating inclusive, diverse, and globally relevant management programs. To answer these questions and also to have very thoughtful discussions, we are privileged to have renowned speakers and industry leaders joining us today, not just from India but abroad as well. To name a few, we have Professor Mistig here, we have Dr. Elizabeth Rose who will be joining us online. So hearty welcome to each of the speakers at the masterclass technical sessions and the panel discussion. At XIME, we always believe in education which is relevant, dynamic, and globally connected. I once again welcome and invite each one of you to come together to harness the collective intelligence. I wish you all an inspiring, meaningful, and enriching experience at this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, we have the distinct honor of introducing our chief guest, Professor Rajiv Gowda.
Professor Rajiv Gowda is an eminent academician, policymaker, and a champion of education and governance. He has served as a professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, where he significantly contributed to public policy, strategy, and governance. With a distinguished career in academia, Professor Gowda has also been at the forefront of shaping policy discussions in India as a former member of the Indian Parliament. He also served as the director of the Central Board, Reserve Bank of India.
His commitment to public service and education has made a lasting impact on India's policy landscape. In addition to his contribution in India, he has also served as a visiting faculty at European universities, bringing a global perspective to his teaching. Today, he joins us to share his thoughts on the evolving role of management education in addressing real-world challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Rajiv Gowda to deliver the inaugural address and to declare the conference open.
That would be helpful. Hello, Namaskara. Good morning. So, let's start by first declaring this wonderful conference open, and let's engage with the frontiers of knowledge of management education. Maybe some of you could just switch around a little bit to get a glimpse of what I'm going to be sharing. Can I help? So this is an extraordinarily timely topic. Transcending the boundaries of management education. So when you think about that, you might want to immediately ask, what are the boundaries of management education, but all of us are here, of the people involved in the practice of management, the managers themselves. And so that's really what we have to take a step back and think about. And the first point is to think about or reflect on the purpose of management education.
really, what we try and do in business schools is all of you come here and we empower you with different knowledge, skills, capabilities to enable you to add value in the real world. It's not just about profit maximization. It's about creating value. If that value makes sense to the world outside, then you will be rewarded with, with sales and profits and whatever else comes. But that's the key, right? Anyway, the other point is, so how do we go about it? We basically take the received wisdom from numerous examples and case studies and contexts and stories and experiences and distill that into larger patterns, theories, etc. And those, along with that, of course, there are some standard tools from statistics and economics and things like that, which help you analyze. Analyze, the word itself means break down. Sort of break down the complexity into something that's manageable, to understand what's going on, and then, of course, to integrate different pieces of knowledge and apply that to the context that you're working on. And then we make sure that there are so many different functional dimensions of management: accounting, analytics, finance, marketing, management, numerous. And, so we give you the capabilities to master all that, okay? To be able to hit the ground running when you go to work. We broadly create T-shaped people who have breadth. By knowing all those domains, you're able to get a sense of how a firm operates, how markets operate. And then, of course, each of you may choose to be a specialist in finance or whatever, in which case you have depth as well. Now, while coming here, I was talking to the two young men who picked me up and brought me over. One of them had work experience and the other did not. And the immediate, conversation, went on to placements, where the work experience helps you get a better job quicker. But I basically think of work experience from the point of view of the educator. Management education is so much about the practical realities of the world of business and industry, markets, etc. So if you've actually been in a workplace before, then a lot of what we teach you becomes meaningful. You can relate to it. So, for example, when we talk about something like organizational politics, right? If you just come straight out of college into the program, it's nice. You learn some theory about how this is, how this goes about. But actually, if you worked in an organization, you'll have a better sense of, okay, this is the department that gets all the attention. These are the people who we need to keep happy. Whatever it is, all that it makes better sense. But nonetheless, even if you don't have it, there are always opportunities for internships and practical exposure, which will help you understand that knowledge and engage with it better. Oh, but today, this is why I said this is timely. The world is changing very dramatically. I'm not sure any of us fully grasps where we are and what's emerging and what's ahead of us, right? And for example, this year or the last few months, we've seen the emergence of first ChatGPT and then a whole bunch of other competitors. And if you paid attention, you would have come across DeepSeek. Have you heard of DeepSeek?
Yes.
Okay. We just came in there and disrupted that market, and NVIDIA lost billions of dollars in market valuation, right? So there's something happening. What is this? Have we learned how to harness that technology? How do we use it and apply it in the context of management education? We don't know. But basically, as a teacher, as an educator, I think the challenge before us is, okay, all this is changing. I mean, I just taught at ISB in Mohali, and in the assignment, I have an instruction. Use of ChatGPT is prohibited. Okay, because I haven't figured out how to make the assignment ChatGPT friendly, or whatever it is, artificial intelligence friendly. How can you still use AI to and then how? I mean, it's like as if I said you cannot use Google search or something. You know, it's going to become like that. It's going to be so ubiquitous that you can't say no, go to the library, learn the catalog system, find the right journal. You know, that's how we went to school, and you know, things like that. The technology is very different. Anyway, now that this technology has emerged, we have a lot of work to do as educators to figure out how to harness this for our purposes. How to, because we know you're going to use it, how do we then work with you so that you use it in a way that makes sense, adds value? Okay? One of the first things we can do is we can give you 10 assignments in the place of one. Okay? That's one way to respond. Okay. Anyway, because you can all get the answers in 5 minutes, right? Anyway, the point is, if you go straight to AI, there's all sorts of other stuff going on. Bizarre answers, cooked up references, what's overall called hallucination. Why is AI coming up with answers like that? Well, we don't know, but we need to grasp what's going on. And so we as students and as any teachers, we need to learn how to check for accuracy. And we need to improve our judgment. What do we include? What's right? What doesn't make sense? Etc. So now we're thinking about a higher order capability that we need to instill in all of us. Okay. So one way for teachers to sort this out is to actually design curricula with students working together. Because the next generation, or 2-3 generations after me, is digitally native, AI native. You all know what to do. For me, I was trying to figure out how to use ChatGPT just the other day. So that's the sort of situation, right? But for it's a change. Instead of us being the faculty who come and give you the received wisdom, here we may say, okay, here is what we're trying to do. How can we come about? How can we do it and make it come alive, right? But there's another question that I want to ask you about management education, right? Yeah. Does management education equip students to read the newspaper, to understand, make sense, look for opportunity? What do I mean by this, right? First of all, I have to explain to you, newspapers are a legacy technology that lasted for many centuries. I don't know, you know what newspapers are, right? Okay, just kidding. The point is that we all get our news from different sources. I barely touch the physical newspaper because I read a lot of news on the internet, right? And but when I say, can you make sense of it? There's so much going on all the time, right? Beyond looking at the headlines, the sports pages, the horoscope, the comics, I don't know what you all look at. But the basic point is, when you look at that, when you look at the opinion pages, a lot of Indian policy discourse is in the opinion pages of newspapers rather than in the journals that we faculty prefer to publish in. Anyway, so the thing is, there's something going on out there. How do we make sense, right? And once we make sense, can we see opportunity? That's from the business point of view. But more than anything else, making sense itself is a big step. Not easy, right? Why? Because, as Roshni ma'am mentioned, she used the word VUCA. We're in a VUCA world, okay? And if you ever wanted, sort of a description of that, there's a gentleman who's changing everything, okay? Incidentally, he and I have the same education. We both went to Fordham and Wharton. So that's where the resemblance ends. Okay, but so what is this? What is this VUCA business, right? This is just a nice acronym. Volatility, right? We don't know. Things are changing dramatically. So how do we respond, right? And then of course there's uncertainty, right? When you don't know what might happen, what might not happen, etc. So, for example, if you were to just take the headlines from Mr. Trump in terms of volatility and uncertainty, one day he says, I'm going to impose tariffs on everyone, on the North American neighbors, Canada and Mexico, for example, right? But then he says, okay, if you're willing to do some deal with me, I'll cut the tariff down, right? So you're not even sure of what he's going to do next, right? And so basically, if you are a company, a corporation, trying to enter a market, trying to make decisions, all of this is going to change your, your market, your opportunity set very, very dramatically. At times like this, you might want to say, well, maybe I'll ignore in the US and sell elsewhere. Is that possible? What does it take for, even for any country to be able to make that kind of a choice, right? Then, of course, the complexity. Now, when we talk about climate change, for example, it is an extraordinarily complex phenomenon. Nowadays, we're slowly beginning to accept that something's happening. Why? We're seeing more severe storms. We're already seeing Bangalore, touching 30 degrees. And it's, just, actually, if you think about the wisdom of the ancients, we just had the festival of Shivratri. And in our common language, we say after Shivratri, it'll get hot. Okay, so that's exactly what's happening, actually. But if you were to look at the map of the Indian subcontinent in a month's time, you will see it's red. Especially northern, northwestern India, it's deep red. What does that mean? It means that the temperatures are very high. So what difference? We'll be in an air-conditioned hall, we'll enjoy life, you can sell more ice cream and cool drinks maybe. But what happens is that the human body cannot function properly beyond a certain temperature. Okay? Apparently some wet bulb temperature of about 37, 40 degrees. You get dehydrated, you could even die, right? And just think about the larger economy, the number of people who toil outside in the fields, etc. If there are going to be whole days or months when they cannot step out and work except early in the morning and late in the evening, what happens to our productivity? What happens to our economy, right? And those sorts of issues are also ahead of us. But we don't know as a nation, as companies, as farmers, we don't know how to deal with all this, right? So that's all part of the complexity, and of course, the ambiguity of if we do this, is it resulting in that? What are the connections? All these sorts of things. So this is just examples of what VUCA can mean. But the way to deal with VUCA, what do I mean by this? We need to have vision. Okay, those leaders who have a better sense of what's going on can take a step back and say, okay, in this VUCA world, this is how we need to navigate and move forward. We can lay that, chart for the direction out and convince everyone to go along. That sort of a visionary leader is someone who can make a huge difference. Mentioned, it's not just climate change. That seems far away. What about pandemics? 5 years ago, if I talked to you about pandemics and we need to be prepared for it, how many of you would have even, you would not even have suppressed the smile, you would have laughed at, right? Okay, so, but we've gone through that. We've seen what it did to economies, to nations, to people's lives, right? So that's the sort of situation that we can now point out as, anything could happen. But at the same time, if you were to go to the United States, Mr. Trump is a climate denier in the sense that he says there's no problem. And there are people, his health secretary says, the pandemic is a cooked up story. We don't need to vaccinate anyone. You get it? So there are many points of view out there. And it's a real challenge because even as we sit here and discuss all this, there are bird flus and various other potential pandemics that are lurking, and we need to be aware that we may just be in an interlude. Understanding, right? Beyond what we already know, can we understand things better? Can we get some clarity which will enable us to focus and take things forward? And then, of course, can we develop agility, the ability to switch between patterns and practices as quickly as we can in response to what's changing around us, right? That's the sort of thing. Back to that same slide. Does management education equip students to read the newspaper, understand, make sense, and look for opportunity? So that's one dimension that we need to pay attention to. I'll come to that a little later. But also, what about you all as human beings? Is it just about giving you a curriculum and saying, go out there and generate profits? It's also about each of us as managers, as people who are out, as individuals, as human beings who have not just a work life, but a life, a family life, right? Who engage as part of society, numerous other things. And we need to develop soft skills. Normally we say softer skills, like the ability to speak in public, the ability to negotiate, a few things to write, to communicate well, etc. But I've added something called warmer skills. The warmth of a flesh and blood human being who cares, who develops empathy. We need to have creativity. A lot of our education system doesn't trigger creativity. It essentially rewards conformity. And so that's what needs to change as well. We need to be able to develop critical thinking. We need to learn how to collaborate. So all these factors we cannot ignore, right? And one other domain, do we equip students to engage with failure, right? Because we only hear about case studies which are success stories. Things have gone so brilliantly, it's all worked out well. But we need to understand what did not work, and why. We need to also learn that when you are in a situation where failure has happened because of you, because of the world around you, because of someone else, you need to be able to cope. You need resilience. You need that sense of purpose to keep you moving forward, right? So the other side, the non-academic side of my life, the political, I just lost the Lok Sabha election from Bangalore North. I've been, preparing for that, direct election entry. I've had a term in the Rajya Sabha, in the upper house of parliament, but this didn't work. And, one of my senior colleagues in Delhi were asking me, hey, you've been a little missing in action for the last few months. I said, boss, this is a tough phase. So just going through a period where motivation and morale is a little low, but the turn of the year has perked me up again. So let's get on with the job, right? And so for example, I head the Congress Party's research department nationally. It's our internal think tank. And just 2 days before the national budget, we released a report called The Real State of the Economy, which, highlights dimensions of the economy which the government would rather suppress. Okay, that sort of thing. Anyway, this is not a political talk, but the point is purpose. Why are you here? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want out of life, out of work life, all of those things? If you've got a sense of that, then whatever ups and downs that you face, you'll be able to handle that. But do we teach this in the classroom? That's one of the points that I want to bring about, right? Now, there's a piece in the Harvard Business Review in 2024, which has this provocative headline, Business Education is Broken, okay? And it says students are schooled in a system which has raised the standard of living for large numbers of people, but now is facing systemic failures in the environmental and social domains, because we don't know how to address climate change. We don't know how to address conflict and violence and whatever else is coming in the way of countries from doing well together. So he says, re-examine the purpose of the corporation, add more breadth in the curriculum, especially about government, talk about new metrics and models, think in systems rather than breaking things down, and integrate more physical, social, and political science into the curriculum. Train stewards of the market, meaning people who have a sense of trusteeship. This is something that we are all building together for one another. Okay, And he says if students are to understand and address 21st century problems, they must be taught to think in terms of systems and to understand complex, multifaceted business enterprises. And he says things like system dynamics, modeling, data analytics, complex decision sciences. My old colleagues at IIM would be very happy with that, because when it comes to modeling, data analytics, decision sciences, most of them are engineers and they're very comfortable with that part of the world. Okay? And, but then he also says, ultimately a well-rounded business student should learn not only the systems of the business, but also the social, economic, political, and environmental systems in which they operate. Is that there in the standard management curriculum, right? Does it sneak in somewhere or the other? Certainly it's not there as a main feature. Anyway, so if you want to engage with sustainability, how do you, so for example, we want to reduce our carbon impact, right? Then what does that mean? Yeah. If you're in the steel industry, cement industry, these are huge contributors to emissions overall. Okay, so how does a corporation engage with all this transformation? I mean, forget those industries. If you're, making electric scooters or something, right? What is the story there? And is it going to work? Is it not? What's the real impact of an electric scooter? Is it as environmentally friendly as it's made out, right? Those sorts of things. Anyway, so you should also learn all these other aspects and learn the technologies. If you can read, I'll let you read for a second and then I'll move on. Okay. If you're talking about going into renewable energy, you need to understand where the money is going to come from, the financing. You need to know what are the regulatory constraints and incentives, what policies would help you do a better job, etc. Okay, is the technology ready? And then he calls for management as a calling, as a mission, as vocation. So you think of yourselves not just as, people who are money counters or bean counters, focusing on just profits, but think about we're on a mission to make a difference to society through the world of business, right? Once you think about that, then you change the way you go about looking at the world and delivering value. Some years ago, if you were to say, okay, boss, you told us the theory, have you done anything like this? Okay, so the point here is, when we were at IIM, maybe a little more than over 2 decades ago, partly because we were forced to. We were revamping the curriculum. We used to have a course on Indian society, a course on Indian economy, and they said, no, let's crunch all those into one class and add some other dimensions and create a course called Business, Government and Society. Okay? And they asked me to be one of the people to design this curriculum. And the current director of IIM Bangalore, Rishikesh Krishnan, he and I designed it together and co-taught it as well. And it's still part of the core curriculum now. And so we said, what are we trying to teach in this course? We are really trying to take students to the world outside the corporation. Everything else that you study is about the corporation and the market. Well, there's something else. It all operates in a larger context. So let's talk about that. So then we start off with, what is the role of the corporation? Is there something like corporate social responsibility? Should there be, right? Then what is this thing called government? Why does it exist? Where did it come from? And what, and how does it work? Then how does government engage with business? Through regulation. Is that a nice, smooth process? Or is there a politics of regulation? If there's a politics, then there are interest groups jostling over what is their vision of the world. And then interest groups as a theory builds on a very self-focused, self-interested model of human beings. So to counter that, we add another lecture, say, talking about something called social capital, which, just like financial capital and human capital and physical capital, to make the world work, you need social capital. So we discuss that as well, which involves a lot of cooperation as well. And then some couple of lectures on how people think and behave. For example, I'm doing a PPT here, right? But if I told you a story if I had conveyed something through what we call symbolic communication, all of those would have had maybe even more of an impact, because human beings are conditioned from birth to listen to stories. So if you want to make communication effective, you need to understand that, right? And then, of course, there's another entity out there, that newspaper, the TV, the world of the media, which is conveying a lot of information about the world to us. How does that work, right? That's another entity to pay attention to. And then, what about India? How much do we know about modern India, about Indian society, politics, economy? I even have a lecture on the agrarian sector, partly because it's, half the population still lives off agrarian sector, but it also gives us an opportunity to bring in other models, the cooperative sector, the microfinance sector, numerous other models, economic models, and then of course a little bit about Indian foreign policy. And then we sort of start looking at emerging forces around us, globalization, right? Now, if I have to update my slides, I have to add half of 20 slides on deglobalization, which is what is going on right now. Okay, the whole central role of China in global supply chains was vital for just-in-time manufacturing and delivery. But now everyone is saying, well, we need a China plus one strategy. So it's not just in time anymore, it's just in case. If just something goes wrong there, right? Then we need to have an alternative. And then, of course, urbanization is happening as a global, as human beings, we're now moving into societies in a way that is unimaginable. And what does that do? Opportunity, constraint. Delhi, in the winter, is a disastrous place to go to. The air is thick with pollutants, and anyone who stays there throughout is shortening their lives. And then, of course, there's innovation. How does that happen? How do you incentivize it? So we try and cover this sort of big picture. Okay, and it's also about teaching techniques. Force students to pick up a current topic relevant to the class, and then start a class with a 5-minute presentation from them, which makes them engage, makes the class also interested in what's going on beyond what the professor teaches. Then I make them do book or film reviews. This is the assignment which I said you can't use ChatGPT or something like that, because it's very easy to not, but when you do this, none of us typically have read a book or watched a film with a critical eye, to make sense of it, to relate it to other things, So that little exercise changes you, gives you a new capability. My exams are typically opinion articles from newspapers. And then I ask questions from different lectures that are integrated, that you have to integrate and make sense of it. So when they come out of the exam, they're suddenly connecting the dots and understanding the big picture. And then, of course, for the project presentations, I would say, go ahead. You don't have to use a PPT. You can sing a song. You can do make it a dramatic presentation. And sometimes they would. There was a presentation years ago where this is about privacy, okay, data privacy. And it was just two people, one person calling for a pizza, and the guy at the other end saying, you really shouldn't have these toppings. I've just looked at your last medical history, things like that. If all this information is available, and that is enough to convey to people the dangers of the lack of data protection. When it comes to, I was talking about symbolic communication. There's a cartoon of U.S. automobile company CEOs going to Washington, right? And they went there asking for subsidies from the government, saying the companies are not doing well. But how did they go there? Each one went there on a private jet. Okay, so the cartoon basically says, you could have at least carpool, guys. If you show up in private jets with a begging bowl, who the hell is going to pay any attention to you? Okay, so that's the sort of situation. Anyway, so these sorts of things, when you approach, and this sort of approach need not be confined to just one course. You could integrate it into economics. Now, I recall when I taught economics at IIM Bangalore, my colleagues preferred a very heavily mathematical approach. When I taught that same class to public policy students, people, for example, the current chief of the CBI is my old student, all of them were like, we don't want the math, please give us the insight. So how are we able to do that, right? That takes, we need to be able to imagine the subject, interpret it, and so if you're teaching adverse selection, you can ask them, why do we have only corrupt politicians dominating the political landscape, right? And then you force them to understand the theory and apply it, and things of that sort. So that again means that all of us on this side of the classroom, the teacher, have a lot of work to do to figure things out. Anyway, these are exciting times. And this is an old quote from 1850 or so from the poet William Wordsworth. Bliss it was in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven. Okay? Now, anyone knows what he's talking about? Okay. He was talking about the French Revolution, actually. And so I'm just giving you an example here that we are at a stage for management education where we don't know what's coming. We're in the midst of tumult and revolution. It was quite bloody, and I don't expect that to happen, but certainly we can see a lot of disruption ahead of us. But to be young, all of you, at a time when all this is changing, is an opportunity to really engage with the world of management in absolutely frontier ways. So look forward to hearing from my colleagues and to working with all of you and to exchanging ideas and, what is it? Transcending the boundaries of management education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Gaura, for your enlightening words. Now, we're honored to hear from Ambassador C.P. Ravindranathan, distinguished diplomat and a passionate advocate for higher education. Ambassador Ravindranathan has had a distinguished career in the Indian Foreign Service, having served as the High Commissioner of India to Australia, where he played a crucial role in strengthening India-Australia relations. His expertise spans diplomacy, international trade, and education policy.
Currently serving as the chairman of XIME Kochi, Ambassador Ravindranathan brings a wealth of experience and a global perspective to management education. His insights into international cooperation and education will certainly enrich our understanding of the future of business education. Let's welcome Ambassador C.P. Ravindranathan to deliver his special address.
Chief guest of this of this conference, Professor Rajiv Gowda, Dr. Noel Lindsay, representing the Adelaide Business School, our partner in hosting this international conference, for which I would like to express my profuse thanks to Professor Lindsay, our director, Dr. Roshni James, and Dr. Mahesh, the coordinator of this conference. I have great pleasure in acknowledging the presence of the President of XIME Society with us as part of the audience. Let me also say that on this occasion we miss Professor Philip, but we hope to have him in the later phases of this conference. Now, under the inspiration of Professor J. Philip, and indeed his proactive initiatives, XIME has developed a tradition of having annual conferences devoted to major themes of management education. These have dealt with overarching themes like globalization and management education, knowledge communities and management education, and also specific topics like what to teach and how to teach, and then the role of dean in management education and the like. In a sense, the theme of this conference itself is a continuation of that of another larger version of an international conference we at XIME had hosted in 2014. It was then a transformation of management education, and under different heads of that topic, the discourse, there was a lively discourse in the course of that conference. But between then and now, there has been a vast change of scene in management education. In terms of contextual conditions, the most notable has been the direction science and technology have taken, and the impact these have left on a wide front of business and industry, and consequently on the tasks and concerns for management education. And for another, there was COVID-19, which paved the way for new possibilities and perspectives for the vocation of business schools, from online learning to a reordering of their operational aspects. By compelling evidence across the board, we have data now to show that the creation of digital or digitally enhanced offerings in 2020 alone had equaled what would have normally taken place over 7 years. Such is the backdrop to this conference, and what it is going to explore is in line with what thinking of management education has always been: to visualize where management is trending in interface with industrial systems, economy, and society, and reflect on how it is for it to move in lockstep with it. Now, in every phase of evolution of business and industry in the past, management in theory and practice has developed by going through the processes of adaptation, renewal, and conceptualization. Following dominant or in-code trends in how business is done or viewed in the real and emerging world. Now, Taylor's theory may be the systematic start of management as a discipline, but painstaking historians trace the first work of management to Benedetto Cotugli of the 15th century, and indeed, one of them calls his book of the Art of Trade as the equivalent of the time of Donald Trump's Art of the Deal. Now, in his narrative of business management, Cotugli stressed the need to scale up the standard of management education. Among other things, he counseled those in business that it is not wise to involve themselves in politics or the civil administration, something which Elon Musk could arguably take note of. Now, speaking of Cotugli, I might also mention that there is a reputable business school in Croatia named after him, and its head had visited XIME and addressed one of our former annual conferences on management education. Now, in the 117 years or so of MBA, management as a scientific discipline has come to hold its own. It has long since overcome the feeling of abject inadequacy beside a discipline like economics, regarded as the queen of the social sciences. Indeed, how could one think of total factor productivity and imperfect competition in economics and theory of the firm without business management? On the other hand, having developed decidedly its own theories, management has come to figure alongside economics and international relations in terms of its visibility in the academic landscape of the 20th century. And education for the MBA course is now universally one of the most popular branches of learning for its focus, its diversity, and for what it teaches, not only in functional disciplines such as organizational behavior, marketing, and operations, but also in arts and accomplishments like leadership, communication, and the like, not to speak of better employment and career prospects than most of the graduate courses. Now, that is the present. How is management education posed for the future? As Drucker said, management is the organ of society, specifically charged with making resources productive. And that being so, management education in its general and specialized form will undoubtedly be a northern aspect of it. As the title says, the theme of this conference is that transcending its boundaries is what the future of this branch of higher education is called upon to attempt, given the way in which business and industry will transform in the days to come under the impact of the fourth industrial revolution. Now, as we consider the future orientations of management education, the conventional issues are no doubt to be foregrounded. Industry academic linkages, more attention to the anticipated skill sets of the future, such as digital, agile thinking, interpersonal, and communication and global operating skills, more thrust on case studies and simulations, mainstreaming of practice into management, more experiential learning and research in business school, online learning versus physical learning with permutations and combinations, and more two-way flow between academic and business milieu to assure better learning and research outcomes. Some of these have been highlighted by Professor Rajiv Gowda in his keynote address. As for management theory, it has certainly matured, and there is enough of it for students to learn and management academics to develop. Perhaps amidst a great deal of the mushrooming of theories, and often good substitutes for theories, the facts, through books and journals, there are still future possibilities for elegant theories also, like that of disruptive innovation. But apart from these enduring issues and concerns of management education, what are the boundaries that need to be transcended if MBA education and institutions that pervade it are to prevail and forge ahead, not least in competition with alternative agencies? The participants in this conference will be addressing the perspectives on different aspects of this theme in the various panels, and we may indeed look forward to benefiting from them. To my own mind, essential to the pursuit of the call implicit in the title of the conference is an awareness that despite all the criticism of business schools, a great deal of it valid, from Potter and McKibben, Henry Mitzberg, and on all others. Management education imparted by them is still the most viable and valuable that there can be. But going forward, management education would need to have its sights on the boundaries that are already emerging with some clarity. Firstly, the boundary of capability in terms of thought leadership and resources of capital, and more than that, of human capital embodied in faculty and students, making for vigorous learning communities in our business schools, coping with developments in the widening range of management disciplines. As well as capability is imagination on the part of management educators, which embraces future vision in terms of science and technology, but more importantly, a life to sustainability of Earth's resources and the ecology of the Earth as the incredibly rarest of the rare or the tiny bits of the universe, and the social dimensions of business enterprise. Thirdly, the sensibility as regards the moral purpose of management, centered on the human dimensions in business and industry, and the nature of work as something meaningful to human self-realization and fulfillment, as emphasized by management thinkers like Frederick Herzberg. Fourthly, humanity as the center of management thought and the unit of analysis, all the more as we are moving into the era of generative artificial intelligence, with the recognized potential for AI to dominate the human being rather than be the instrument of humans. It is very much within the province of management education to prepare managers to work with and indeed to make AI work for human beings, and at any rate to sensitivize management students to the ethical dimensions of artificial intelligence. To these boundaries, I might add something by way of an antithesis. It may be as well for our students to be sensitized to critical management studies, to know, at least in terms of corrective, how we may address the ideological and epistemological flaws of managerialism. So described, transcending the boundaries of management education may sound as tall order, but let us remind ourselves, as I've been saying, that management education has to measure up to the primordial significance of management itself to society, even if management is circumscribed to business management. XIME is delighted to host this conference in partnership with the Adelaide Business School. And let me wish this event on behalf also of the chairman of XIME Bangalore, Professor J. Philip, the fullness of success. Thank you.
Now we arrive at a special moment, the official release of the conference proceedings.
The conference proceedings capture cutting-edge research in the field of management education, contributed by eminent scholars whose collective insights, discussions, and findings will be explored throughout the event. Embodying our theme of transcending boundaries in management education, this year, the conference focuses on key themes such as innovation in management education, technology in management education, quality and accreditation, diversity and global perspective in management, and integrating sustainability and social responsibility in management education.
In addition to insightful research presentations, the conference will feature 2 invigorating panel discussions with international scholars, corporate leaders, and academicians, along with a keynote address by distinguished experts. Attendees will also have the opportunity to participate in workshops and masterclasses conducted by global thought leaders, fostering deeper engagement with emerging trends in management education. The event will conclude with a cultural evening, celebrating the diversity and collaboration that define the global landscape of management education. With its rich blend of academic discourse, industry perspectives, and cultural exchange, the conference promises to be an impactful platform for shaping the future of management education.
Now, we move on to the much awaited keynote address, and we are honored to welcome Professor Noel Lindsay, the Pro Vice Chancellor, Entrepreneurship and Dean of Business at Adelaide Business School, Australia.
Professor Lindsay is a globally recognized expert in entrepreneurship, business education, and innovation-driven learning. He has dedicated his career to fostering an entrepreneurial mindset among students and professionals, driving impactful change through research and academia.
His leadership at Adelaide Business School, Australia has positioned it as a hub of business innovation, ensuring students and professionals alike are equipped with the skills necessary to thrive in today's fast-paced world.
Today, he will share his vision on how business education can evolve to meet global challenges and opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Noel Lindsay.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be here to address you today on the topic of transcending boundaries in management education. I say this for two reasons. First up, you may not be aware, but the University of Adelaide, where the Adelaide Business School is located, we're going through a merger at the moment. We're merging with another university, University of South Australia. We're going to have somewhere around 65,000 to 70,000 students there. And as Dean of Business, my task is to oversee the development of some 367 management-related courses by the end of this year that will be made available for students at the beginning of next year. So looking at new ways to develop management education is very dear to my heart. But there's another reason why I'm very interested in this topic, and that's because in year 11, I dropped out because I felt that the school system was not giving me what I needed. I could not see the relevance of what was being taught in the room by the teachers. So I left. I got a job. I started a business. And it was only at that point that I realized the importance of what was being taught to me in school, how that was so important for me, my career, my life, and going forward there. And so what that did for me, it motivated me to go back to school overnight while I worked during the day, and go to university overnight while I worked during the day. And by doing that, my work, my business career provided context for my studies. I saw the relevance there and how important it is to have an education, but I also saw the interconnectedness of the different parts in management education. And so for here today, I have a number of slides that I'd like to put up here to you, and I have a message that I would like you to take away. And that message is, we live in a changing world. As Professor Gowder has said, we need to change our approach, therefore, to be more aligned there. And so what does that mean? It means transcending the boundaries of what we do and what we've done in the past there, and to come up with new ideas, new ways of doing things, and educating our leaders of the future. And these are some of the topics that I'll be talking about as we go through. What is the traditional approach to management education? It's very much limited by boundaries, silos, where we learn topics in different areas there. And very rarely do we touch base and have other disciplinary areas involved. in what we do. I'm an accountant. I'm a chartered accountant. I learned a lot about accounting when I studied my Bachelor of Commerce. But during that time, I didn't learn a lot about marketing and HR and finance and all those other things until I did some courses, of course, but not as part of the core disciplinary area that I was involved in. And I learned most of the things that I learned about the interconnectedness of things is on the job there when I left. And I see, I'm the national president for the Australian Business Deans Council, the ABDC. And I get to see what other business schools do in Australia, but I also see what other business schools do in the world as well. And this approach to having rigid educational boundaries is not that different in my school as it is in other schools. And I say we have to change there. We also tend to focus on having particular learning styles where we have lecture theatres there to lecture to our students. Sometimes we'll have flat areas with tables and chairs and that. And this is important, and these are good. This has worked in the past. But going forward, we may need to change our approach there. And of course, we live in a global world. And so we need to understand cultures, other people's cultures, have a global mindset in that. And for much of what we do in our traditional approach to management education, I would argue, we fall short in some of those areas there. So why do we need to modify the traditional approach? Why do we need to transcend boundaries there? Well, the fact is, our reality today does not exist on a level plane. There's a number of different dimensions to our reality. And no one person confronted with a problem can solve often the problems that we're faced with. You need a team of people. You need multi-perspectives. You need often different systems that will help us solve the problem. As Professor Gowder said, we live in a VUCA world, and that's the reality. There was a long time ago when our environment was stable, and the decisions we made yesterday, how we made those decisions were relevant to how we made decisions tomorrow. But that's no longer the case. The world we live in, the environment we live in is changing. And so what we do today may not be necessarily a good predictor of what we do tomorrow. And so, but what I'm not saying here is that we don't need a detailed perspective in our disciplinary areas there. To be a good marketing professional, you need to have an in-depth understanding of marketing. To be a good accountant, you need a good in-depth understanding of accounting, or finance, or HR, or whatever. But I would argue also that our education system needs to educate us to see the broader picture here and understand the interrelatedness of the different disciplinary areas that we're focusing on here. Very, very relevant. Because the problems we're faced with today, you sitting here, future leaders, they're not singularly dimensional, they're multidimensional. And you need to appreciate the interconnectedness of the parts. And so I would argue that our education, in educating future leaders, it needs to be integrative and it needs to be holistic. So what's involved in transcending traditional boundaries for management education? What do I think is maybe some best practice here? If I was designing a course that transcends boundaries, and I am designing courses, I've got 367 courses that we're focusing on developing at the moment. These are some of the things that I believe we should be looking at and including as practice in developing these courses. First up, we need a transdisciplinary approach to developing courses. We need to transcend the different fields. So it's not to say that if you're studying marketing, you don't do a course on marketing. But I would argue also, in that course, you need to have perspectives on how accounting and finance and HR and legal studies and whatever else impacts upon you as well. This way, you'll have develop up a more holistic learning experience, and which will make you better prepared for going forward. I would also argue that students need to be more than just passive recipients. They need to actively engage and be involved, immersed in business. Case studies are great, and we use them, but nothing like getting your hands dirty in the real world at the same time. I'll talk more about that soon. Another area that I think is very important if we're transcending the traditional ways of developing courses in management education, and that is we as educators need to focus on fostering emotional intelligence in our students. This is important. Empathy, self-awareness, societal awareness, extremely important. We need to make sure that we understand as business leaders that the impact of our decisions we're very conscious of, how they impact us, how they impact others, how they impact society there. I also argue critical thinking here is extremely important, blending the soft with the hard here. Systems thinking, extremely important there, because the world is made of systems, complex systems and subsystems. Design thinking is extremely important as well, coming up with new ways of doing things. And of course, creativity, as we've heard from Professor Gowder, extremely important. So if we're going to be designing, having a new approach to developing courses, then we need to make sure that we spark interest, we spark passion, we spark curiosity, playfulness. Creativity needs to come through here. Wanting more knowledge there, to learn more about our respective areas. I would also argue that in the new paradigm needs to be more emphasis on visuals rather than text. The biggest impact upon us is through visuals, not so much through text. And so good course designers, good lecturers will embrace a greater use of visuals. I also argue that in developing our students, we need to foster a growth mindset in transcending boundaries and understand that failure is not the end of the world, that failure is a way of learning. I used to be in venture capital. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship as my substantive position. When entrepreneurs came to us, if someone had failed, we thought that was fantastic if they'd failed before they came to us, because they've experienced what real world is like and they've learnt from that. And by doing that, we believed that that reduced our risk of investing, putting money into them. Collaboration is important, we've heard. I'm talking about collaboration from a number of different perspectives, collaboration from students, but also collaboration from different disciplinary areas. Perhaps having a professor of finance in a room, but also there maybe a professor of design thinking, a professor of psychology, a professor of economics in designing a course, but also delivering that course. That will enhance the richness of the experience, the learning experience for the student. Industry engagement. I mentioned beforehand, case studies are important, but there's nothing like getting your hands dirty and working in industry as you're going through your studies there. It's hard, I think, for undergraduate students to appreciate the complexities of business, but people here in this audience, postgraduate qualifications, very much probably appreciate just how different the learning you can experience in the classroom can be to when you actually go out in the real world and try to apply it. Developing a global perspective and understanding cultural diversity. I touched on that earlier there. Extremely important. We do live in a global world. And even if you work for a company, say here in Bangalore, it's possible that that company may have branches elsewhere, even overseas. And while the company, the branches in the overseas countries are all part of the one company, There'll be different cultural nuances and influences on the different branches. And so effective leaders, successful leaders, need to understand cultural diversity. And then just finally, a topic I'm very passionate about is entrepreneurial thinking. If we're transcending boundaries and coming up with innovative ways of developing and delivering new courses, we need to instill an entrepreneurial mindset into our students. They understand, and if I can just make the point that I know I'm talking to the converted here, but many people think entrepreneurship is about starting a business. The fact of the world is that most people don't start a business. Most people go and work for somebody. But employers value entrepreneurial thinkers because they can help develop their business. And so things like being able to identify opportunities, being able to understand how to manage risk there, continual improvement, persistence, innovation, creativity, all extremely important. And indeed, in our new university, which will be called Adelaide University, one of our core courses across the 70,000 students, a must-take course, is called Entrepreneurship and Design Thinking. Whether you're a doctor in our new university, whether you're an engineer, whether you're going to be a teacher, whether you're going to be an arts graduate, we want you to understand how to think in an entrepreneurial way, because your career in the future is not clear. Positions are changing, jobs are changing, and you need to think in an entrepreneurial way to do so. And so I would argue we need a holistic approach if we're transcending boundaries, one that's multifaceted, and we need to impart knowledge and have structures, a system for imparting knowledge that is more relevant to the changing world. Let me give you some examples of transcending boundaries in management education. There are numerous examples. These are just a handful that I came across. What I think is perhaps some best practice there. At a general level, let me talk about that first. Many universities now, like our university, are inculcating entrepreneurial thinking into their curriculum for all students. But then also there's a great emphasis on business incubation, helping students start businesses, and for those who don't want to start the business, for other students who want to work with somebody working in the startups there and getting an understanding of what it's like to start and scale a business. But here's some specific examples here, and I've grouped those into a number of different areas there. For example, in transcending management education boundaries, in the global student initiatives, we have a number of universities in this area where the universities take their students and they send them overseas to work in international companies overseas to better understand the nuances and that around developing a global mindset, understanding cultural differences, but also understanding the interdependencies of the different disciplinary areas, the finance, the accounting, the marketing, when you were trying to make unstructured decisions there. And then MIT has a program around exposing its students to consultancies, where they consult, the students go and consult with scale-ups, startups in emerging markets, developing an understanding of what it's like to start and run a business. We have another approach to transcending boundaries here, partnering with other institutions. So Xinhua and Indian Institute of Management at Bangalore, they have programs that expose their students to collaboration, working with, studying at other institutions to develop up a more global mindset. And IIMB, of course, has a very good program, which I've been privileged to see within its business incubator, which is very successful. And then just finally, here, some other examples of universities that adopt a transdisciplinary approach. For example, Stanford, it's the same across all of these. It gets together engineers and artists and psychologists with business lecturers, academics there, to develop and deliver these courses, giving different perspectives on management education, and the sorts of problems we are aiming to solve there. And so, what are the emerging trends that I see here? Well, I see going forward more flexible learning environments that are more student-centred. And as Professor Gowder alluded to in his talk, a heavy reliance on technology, with AI playing a big role in the in going forward in the way we design and deliver management education. And so, in summary, the world has changed, has been changing for some time, but it's very changed now in recent months, in recent years. We can't continue with the same old ways of developing and delivering subject matter to students. We have to embrace a new approach. We have to transcend the boundaries of traditional ways of doing things. And I would argue that's underpinned by a transdisciplinary approach to education. It's underpinned by entrepreneurial thinking. It's underpinned by having a global mindset. It's underpinned by understanding better how others engage with society and how they make decisions as well and where they come from. Thank you.
As we approach the conclusion of the inaugural session, we take a moment to express our sincere gratitude.
To do the honors, I now invite Dr. Mahesh, the conference convener, to deliver the word of thanks.
Distinguished speakers on the dais, esteemed colleagues, faculty colleagues, delegates, participants of the conference, students. It's really a privilege and honor to stand before you to extend, a word of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee for this participants of this inaugural ceremony. And after hearing all the three stalwarts, as Professor Roshni put it, nicely put it, I can very confidently say that this conference brings together brilliant minds, visionary thinkers, and passionate educators. Like, these are not empty words, these are like something which has come out of, after hearing the three people speaking. And this is perhaps one of the occasions where I was hearing each and every sentence of all these three people. I don't know if some of you are probably a little distracted, but then, I found it very, very interesting, each and everything that they said. In fact, I requested them to kind of even share their PPT so that we can use it further later. Okay, so to get into this formal part of it, I would like to really thank first and foremost Professor J. Philip in his absentia. He promised that he would be trying to kind of get this, be here by 11:30. Unfortunately, I think he was caught up in a personal commitment of such exigency that he could not be here. Now, it was his foresight that he identified this theme for this conference. He proposed this idea, at the very beginning. And he said, with the world undergoing rapid transformations and the paradigm of management under, coming under closer scrutiny, he said this is not just relevant, and this, some of the deliberations could be really prophetic. These were his words. So I think, it has this conference will set a stage for discussions that promise to push boundaries, like I think all the speakers were also mentioning. Thank you, Professor Philip, in his absentia, for steering us towards this intellectual crosshair. I would also like to thank President for being a mentor for this conference. He has always been supportive. I would look forward to hearing him probably tomorrow. Next I would like to extend a warm appreciation to Professor Rajiv Gowda. I've been lucky enough to be in his classroom some time back, and also in very private conversations on Indian politics, much to my delight. Today, he's one person who brings in a unique perspective. Because he's one of the few individuals who can claim that vantage point of having traversed a lot of domains which others would not be, academia, politics, policy making, And these such people are very rare. As a globally recognized academic with PhD from the prestigious Wharton School, and as a seasoned politician, I think his perspective has brought immense depth to the deliberations already. Thank you, Professor Gowda, for sharing your wisdom today. I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to Professor Noel Lindsay. His slides were really interesting, and I really thank him for not just speaking today, but in supporting us with the conference when we kind of proposed this idea for a joint conference. He was more than willing, and he actually helped us a lot in kind of structuring the whole conference. And in fact, we were expecting few guests from participants from Australia. Unfortunately, they could not travel for some issues. So I'm confident that we will, together, XIME and Adelaide School will remain at the forefront in shaping the future of management education through such endeavors, one of which we have started today. Thank you, Professor Lindsay. A special gratitude to Professor C.P. Ravindranathan, who graciously agreed to deliver the special address. I mean, his vast repository of wisdom is something which we are witnessing, which we witness regularly, particularly the kind of very thought-provoking questions that he raised. Today was obviously no exception. A lot of remarkable viewpoints that came about the future. I mean, obviously he linked it to the past, but he also kind of pointed to the future of management education. In fact, the title of the conference, many of the speakers used that word transcending. Some of these words came through discussions with Professor Ravindranathan. Thank you, sir, for all the contributions. None of this would have been possible without the unwavering support of Dr. Roshni James. Thank you very much. She always supports such initiatives, and I think she put the conference on track with this wonderful welcome speech. Thank you for that. Finally, I must acknowledge all of you, all participants, delegates who are here, other presenters who are already here. Some of them will be joining today. I think half of them are already here. I'm really excited, as probably as you are, in terms of about what is lying ahead. In fact, sorry, I missed out one important person who has been I've been conversing with him for the last 2 years, Professor Dr. Or Lustig. He's from Israel and brings perspective which we are all probably very keenly looking forward to. Dr. Rajiv Kamnini, a friend of XIME, I will call it that way, and he brings in beautiful perspectives from a field which is very interesting, which is he dabbles with both sports, arts, and academia. So again, unique perspectives. So we look forward to that. Thank you for your presence. So I think today we will continue to explore, innovate, and transcend the boundaries of management education. Thank you all.
We invite Ambassador C.P. Ravindranathan sir to felicitate our esteemed speakers, Professor Rajiv Gowda and Professor Noel Lindsay, in recognition of their invaluable contributions to this conference. With that, we officially conclude the inaugural function of this esteemed conference.
We extend our heartfelt thanks to all our distinguished speakers and esteemed guests for their valuable contributions.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us for the Q&A. We will reconvene at 12 p.m. for the next session. Thank you. And also the students are expected to stay back.
Students, please stay back. Can you all take your place? Well, thanks very.
They can go to washroom and stay back we said because they can have they will come back. Next session if they tell go they won't come. We have a message in the group. They can't make us. That's why I said to the boss, please stay back.
Turn on and keep it. Just say that don't off it.
Hello. Hello, mic check. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you? Good. Ah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. And where are you from? XIME. Okay. I see. Oh, wow. Okay. Ah, yes. Right, right. Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So, I'm very pleased. Bangalore. Ah, okay. I see. I see. So 500 institutions, including schools, colleges. Yeah, okay. Ah, yes, I understand. I understand. More of a community development. Yeah. Yes. Yes. No, I understand. Sell that in part institutions like universities, schools, universities. Yes, yes. Okay. Yeah. Good, good. Yeah. No, I did. It's lovely to see students. I love to see helping people grow. Yeah. Kudos. Well, I very much enjoy competitions and my stuff. Yes. Oh, it's very, yeah, very true. Yeah. Yeah. Very much a pleasure meeting you. Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. दो हैं हाँ एक और चाहिए एक और चाहिए थैंक यू गाइस माइक सब चेक
Hello, hello.
ये कैसे लेवल लग रहे हैं
सारे मैच नहीं रहेंगे उसको बंद नहीं करना है ये उसके लिए मॉडरेटर हेलो 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 माइक चेक कोई मैच बंद
भाई मॉडरेटर इज
बीच बोला बीच वो सब बोल देंगे तो एक काम वो एक खराब हो गया
Hello, mic check.
मत करना इसको क्योंकि बंद किया तो चलेगा नहीं
Hello.
ऐसे शुरुआत
Or let's say Rajiv Kandini. So how is it like? One person here in moderator? Yeah. No, you should. The moderator will be the moderator should be one person. Okay, one side. Because he can see the. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have. Yeah. Yeah. If you have any problem, you can indicate.
Why is there only one mic? Why is there only one mic? I will.
Guys, wait for a minute. They asked to wait for a minute.
I don't know. Yeah.
Take your respective seats and like
The afternoon session to
Masterclass.
you got the details of this.
I have during lunch.
When this after the session, you should say that what the course is having severe Guys, you can do it now.
I request the audience to please settle down. We will begin shortly.
Audience, please settle down. We're going to begin shortly.
Good morning to one and all present here. I am Mohnish Sharma.
And I, Tanzila Naz,
Feel truly honored and privileged to speak and serve as compares at the International Conference on Transcending the Boundaries in Management Education 2025.
Today, as we navigate an era of rapid technological advancements, dynamic global markets, and evolving workforce expectations, the need for innovations in management education has been more critical.
Conventional classroom models are giving way to experiential learning, digital transformation, and interdisciplinary approaches that equip future leaders with not only technical knowledge but also agility, creativity, and ethical decision making. The integration of AI-driven analytics, gamified learning, and real-world simulations, along with industry collaborations, is reshaping how business concepts are taught and applied.
Today, we have the opportunity to hear from some of the finest minds who have been at the forefront of this evolution. Leaders who have redefined how management education is delivered, experienced, and applied in the real world. To bring in depth and diverse perspectives to this discussion, we are privileged to have an esteemed panel with us today. We have with us Dr. Rajiv Kabineni, who has come all the way from Australia. He's an academic leader and visionary who has made remarkable contributions to management education and leadership development. Moreover, holding a PhD in movie entrepreneurship, Dr. Rajiv has been instrumental in launching and redesigning MBA programs, mentoring academic staff, and ensuring excellence in AACSB, ISO, and EQRIS accreditations. He currently spearheads the Academy at Deloitte, overseeing its planning, coordination, and integrity. His entrepreneurial acumen shines through his work in the movie industry, where he led the marketing and global release of 14 Tamil and Telugu films in 2016. Today, we are privileged to have him as one of the distinguished panelists in our international conference. We request you, sir, to please come up on the stage and have a seat.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next panelist of the day, who has come all the way from Israel. He is someone who seamlessly blends engineering expertise with business acumen. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Or Lustig, Vice President of Business Development at Matrix Medica. In addition to his corporate achievements, Professor Or Lustig is also serving as a lecturer at Haifa University, sharing his expertise in mentoring the next generation of business leaders and innovators. Acquiring an MBA from the Technion, he has carved out an impressive career at the intersection of technology, business, and healthcare. Before joining Matrix Medica, All Lustig was the CEO and co-founder of Seatback, a groundbreaking startup in wellness sector. His leadership in startup world and his ability to drive strategic initiatives in healthcare technology have made a lasting impact in the industry. So without further ado, please join us, sir, and we have a warm welcome for him. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Today, we have the honor of hosting a distinguished academician, Dr. Apurva Sanaria, young faculty research chair and professor at IIM Bangalore. Dr. Sanaria brings over 2 decades of experience spanning corporate leadership, consulting, and academia. He has worked across 22 countries in roles such as Group Director, HR and Organization Development at IMRD International. His expertise in leadership development, employee engagement, and competency mappings has shaped over 70 top organizations, including Union Bank of India, Reserve Bank of India, Godrej Group, and Future Group. A scholar at heart, he holds a fellowship in organizational behavior from XIME Jamshedpur and has presented research at international conferences in India, China, and the USA. His dedication to advancing leadership and organizational excellence makes him an inspiration to many. Join me in welcoming Dr. Apurva Sanaria. May we have you on stage, sir.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Finally, to get this boat afloat and to guide today's discussion, we have our esteemed moderator, Dr. Krishna Kumar Nellore, Associate Professor at XIME Bangalore. Dr. Nellore is a visionary leader and an innovator with over 30 years of experience spanning technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. His passion for fostering startups and venture creation has led to remarkable contributions across various functional domains, particularly in technological-driven solutions. As the Senior Associate Director at SMART, the Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology, Dr. Nellore played a pivotal role in identifying and supporting high-potential research projects for commercialization, contributing to the successful launch of over 10 spin-off companies. That all being said, now I request Dr. Nellore to take the stage and help steer this conversation with his vast expertise and thought-provoking perspectives.
With that, let's dive right into our panel discussion. Please join us in welcoming again our distinguished panelist and moderator. Over to you, Krishna Kumar, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and I'm really honored to have to chair this and moderate this panel. Thank you for taking the time and taking the time to share your insights with the audience. I would like to start by asking each one of you to share, your views on innovation in management education over the next 5 to 10 minutes. And from there, we can kickstart the conversation. So, Rajiv, if I may request you to start.
Thank you, KK. And I'm going first because I don't have a jacket. All 3 of them have a jacket, so I'm the informal one, so I'm going first. And my boss has come with a tie also, so that's why he went as the first keynote speaker. Thank you for the opportunity. How many of you here want to get placed in a company after you finish your MBA? Thank you. That's most of you, yes. If I say that you come to my institution, I'm not guaranteeing you a job, but I'll give you a world-class education. How many of you will come and join us? Oh, not bad. Okay. Not all of you, but many of you. That's the first boundary which we have to see when we talk about boundaries in management education. In Australia, in the US, we do not promise placement. When we say you're coming for a management education, when you're coming for an MBA or even a bachelor's, jobs are not guaranteed by the institution. They say we will give you the skill set, we'll give you the knowledge with which you can go and find a job. We place a lot of emphasis on networking within the cohort, with the other cohorts, and also with the staff and the industry. We organize events which are going to give you the benefit of networking, but there is no placement cell. There is no 0 week or week 1 of placement where employers come and line up and recruit. That's a huge difference. I'm not talking about Adelaide Business School alone, which is, we started teaching business in 1902. So that's one of the oldest, if not the oldest business schools in Australia. It's not just, even if it's in Sydney, Melbourne, or whether it's in Harvard, MIT, everywhere. That's the difference. So when employers started coming to me and saying that you've got these students who've got excellent GPA, 6.5 out of 7, but they're not job ready, I got frustrated with this. Many a time, that's what the employers used to come and say, you have excellent graduates, but they're not job ready. So in 2021, University of Adelaide made a decision. Let's partner with the industry and let's develop something called the Academy, which is a partnership between the university and Deloitte. So we said, okay, Deloitte, you're complaining that students are not ready, that you have to train them again after they do an MBA or a bachelor's with us. You have to train them again. So, okay, let's partner. And that's how something called Academy by Deloitte was born. The beauty of that program is any student in the university, not necessarily business students, they can be STEM students, they can be art students, they can be law students, and even medical students. They can be part of the academy. Once they get admitted into the academy, they do 4 courses, out of which one is a very specific design course called Advisory Principles and Practice. First time in the world, Deloitte and the university prepared a course called Advisory Principles and Practice. That, I think, is one of the boundaries which we crossed and said, okay, now industry and academia are not different, they're one together. So we offer this program where students do 2 internships. First internship, if they're successful, they're invited back to the second internship, and then they do the Advisory Principles course, and undergraduate students do 2 postgraduate students, which give them credit for the MBA program. And that is a work integrated learning partnership. And it's been very successful from the university's point of view. Deloitte goes through ups and downs, so their recruitment patterns may change. Initially, we promised that all 300 students in the academy will get a job, but it doesn't work that way because Deloitte goes through ups and downs. But that is work integrated learning, which is one of the ways in which we can transcend management boundaries. So I said, when KK said, what topic will you start on? I said, I'll start with WIL, work integrated learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, actually, I'll start with what Professor Lindsay just said in the key panel just before us. So I think his advantage of coming into the academy once he had experience, it was a huge difference for him. And I think in my country, in Israel, it's mostly like that. We talked with the panel a few moments ago about it. We are mandatory to serve the army once we finish high school. So, I mean, statistically, people start to do universities and college only on the age of 22 to 24. And practically, when you go into your master, most of the time you have family. And, you know, life is stronger on everything. So you need to have a job. And most of the time, people are doing it in parallel, which I think in one hand is a disadvantage for all of us because we are losing the race of time. But on the other hand, people are coming more mature, both for the bachelor and for the masters. So I think it's a huge advantage. Combining with that, Israel is, I mean, I don't know if you all know, but it's the startup nation, which is cultural wise looking. I think Israel is a lot like India, by the way, on the agile, on the flexible thinking, on flexible the limits and the boundaries of everything. So I think India, obviously having the massive population, could be a big brother to Israel in that point. So I mean, combining that it's a very innovative country that both of the government and the ecosystem is supporting startups. A lot of, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with, but we are the the top country per population for unicorns startups, which is companies that worth over $1 billion. And it's a startup nation, and we're the only Tel Aviv University is the only school in the top 10, other than Oxford in the England, is that has like founders, top 10 schools that generate like founders. I will talk about it in my workshop later on the day. And so the combination of that, of the maturity and the experience with life and being in an ecosystem of the startup nation, which is all around you, the academic also benefit from it. And in Haifa University, which is the place that I'm teaching at, we have it's called the Haifa Innovation Lab, and it's funded by the government. We have a budget of over 5 million shekels, which is approximately $1.5 million a year, only for generating innovation, because the academia, which I believe in the history of the past 200, 300 years, generated multiple, probably thousands or tens of thousands of ideas that in the end be commercialized. It's also changed a lot in the past 30 years. I will talk about it in my workshop. But it's very interesting, and it's very interesting position to be at. And I think Israel and India have a lot of this similarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Over to you,
Okay. Yeah, so after both of them, it's a tough spot to be in, but then I have an advantage because you have a perspective from US and Australia, and you have a perspective from Israel, and I'll talk about India, which you all have a first-hand experience with. So I keep experimenting in my courses and all, which we will talk through the conversation. But I'll pick up on the two things that they've spoken about, and which is what I talk to my students when we talk about. So one of the biggest thing which stands out is, to begin with, we spoke about that here the students are much younger in masters than what we have internationally. And we were actually talking that, are they really preparing for learning, or are they more focused on the exams? Was one of the questions that Professor Lastik was asking me a while ago, and I said, yeah, exams are pretty important over here, because student will ask, Prof, you taught this, but is this important for the exam? So how much attention do I pay? And I understand that mentality. The second aspect which you have to understand important, and I'll tell you the implications for our education in India, is when placements over here. So when you come to good institutes like this, in India, MBA students, my understanding is look at the placements and then join the institute. You look at the placement record, which is totally different from other places. And it's good, you have a guaranteed placement, and there have been enough experiments with that. But there are issues about it which we don't pay attention to. So when in my class with students, I tell them always that getting placed is difficult when you want to get placed, because you will all get placed because you are in a good institute, but you all want that dream company, that dream role, that dream package. And you all are aware not everyone in the batch gets that. So getting placed is still a little difficult because you have to struggle and you have to get there. So I say getting placed is little difficult. But then keeping that job, getting promoted in that job and making a career out of that is extremely difficult. And this is what is only getting more and more difficult in the VUCA world that we are talking about. You are all aware in the Indian context, the Infosys News and all the other L&T chairmen and everyone talking, and you know where you are headed. So you will get placed, but what will happen after you get placed is always a challenge, because this is where the whole problem is. The problem is that we are often to some extent placement focused, to some extent exam focused, and then to a little bit extent also learning focused, in that order, because these two things are important. And what happens? What happens is you get placed, you go to the organization, you start working, and the idea is when you're given a case study in the class, you're able to solve it, but when the problem is out there, you are really struggling. And to be honest, when you are struggling, it reflects in your performance ratings, it reflects in whether you are retained, it reflects in whether you get the promotion, it reflects in whether you grow. And then of course, it's a trend, you jump the company. Because what I always joke around is that people change jobs very frequently because before the company can discover their incompetence, they move to the next one. And the second thing is what you learn in your management education are 2-3 things. One is you learn how to make PPTs. That's fundamental to any MBA, right? Globally, but okay, in India. And the second thing, the second art that particularly all other masters may also teach you, but MBAs have a unique advantage in India. MBA students have this unique ability to come to the stage, have a presentation over there, look at the PPT first time when it is opened over there because the friend made it, and talk confidently and communicate effectively about what it is all about and get away with it. So, you know, that's the MBA advantage. Now, therefore, what happens is this gives you a huge advantage because research shows that people who are good in communication get selected in any interview almost 70 to 80% of the time, because that is all that the interview, from a recruitment point of view, interview is the worst way to recruit people. It has only 20% accuracy rate compared to many other things like written tests and other things. So the advantage is when you are really good and you've done your MBA well, you learned this presentation and you allowed your friends to make it and just went there and presented it, you are very good at going into interviews, impressing the interviewers and getting the job. But you are not really good at 2-3 things: keeping that job, doing the real work, and beyond work, surviving what in the morning they were talking about, organizational politics. There is no organization in this world, where there is no politics. So if you have to talk to your alumni and those, they always say, "Arey, a lot of politics, you know, Apurva, I did all the hard work and he got the promotion. Someone does this, someone gets credit, someone gets promotion, someone gets increment." And the point is, you then crib and cry that I wasn't prepared for this, but my view, because I come from organization behavior and entrepreneurship space, I said this is what I was trying to teach in the class. That how do you deal with that? How do you succeed in that? And if only you had focused on learning rather than writing the answers in the exams and getting the placement, things would have been better. So I think that is one context which we all need to understand, that the global context is different, it is different. And I think the placements guarantee in India is what necessitates experimentation and innovation in management education in India, and which is what we'll talk about as we go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I think that sets the stage for the context of where we operate, and perhaps bringing back all the discussions that the inaugural panel talked about, which is about the volatility in the environment, the context of the lack of experience and the need for maturity and exposure to practice in real life. Given that you need to bridge that gap, and increasingly what we have seen is that we found recruiters looking for skill-based knowledge rather than just general knowledge in terms of management information. What do you think as the changes that has to be made to the curriculum for the students to be more job ready, as you said, in the market?
Thank you. I'll start with a question. How many of you read the book 5 Point Someone? Okay, I'll make it easier. How many of you have watched the movie 3 Idiots? Okay, see, that's a tragedy. Most people watch movies, not read books. There are 3 characters in that movie. Ranchod, Farhan and Raju Rastogi. There is also Chatur. Chatur, yes. That is not my character. I don't want to talk about Chatur because Chatur is a comedy. But okay, the reason why I asked this example is the whole movie revolves around the fallacies or the failure of Indian education system. Because it's focused on exams, it's focused on results, marks, and what Apurva was talking about, students preparing only for the exams. And Raju is a classic example where he has 4 rings, prays to 8 gods in the morning before he goes to the exam. Why is so much emphasis placed on exam in management education? Because one of the criteria for getting shortlisted for an interview is your GPA or your marks. So if you transcend that boundary and say, we are here to learn, because there is a difference between getting a degree and getting educated. I've seen lots of people, including my grandmother, who never went to formal education, never got a formal degree, but she's the most educated person. She used to manage all of farms, and in her 60 years of managing the farms, she has never visited any of those farms. But the way she used to talk with expertise to the farm laborers, the laborers used to think that this madam has woken up at 4 a.m. in the morning, gone and checked on the farms because she's asking us all the right questions. That is learning. She's never been to the farm. What she does is talk to 4 people, get a mental picture of how the farm is. And I asked her, how many times do you visit the farm? She said in the entire 60 years, she's never gone to the farm because ladies don't go to farms. That's her answer. And she's learned. Whether she's got a degree, she's not got a BSc in agricultural science or a MSc in agricultural science. But she's probably one of the best farm managers I've known. So what's the difference? She's learned from her life. And in an MBA course, when we transcend the boundary and say that, okay, this is not only exam focused, but I want to get something out of it. I want to take something out of value out of it. The value proposition, that's what is one of the boundaries which we have to transcend.
So I just want to extend that thought a little bit. So we obviously operate in society in the milieu of a certain framework of working. And the students who join, we are asking them to take that big leap and say that I'm here for learning, not for placement. And that may be a very big leap for them to take. So if you were to look at it from the perspective of what should the institution do to change the way that things are taught, and look at it from that point of view.
So for in terms of the students, like I think I will touch the student for a sentence because I want to add something. I think the difference between chasing grades and not chasing education is a big point. I think all of you here in this auditorium needs to be selfish, needs to be ambitious, needs to think, okay, I got an opportunity today to have a panel of people with a lot of experience. In the front row here, you have people with a lot of experience and a lot of connection to the industry and a lot of connections to the academic and whatever. And you need to think, how do you use it? You go to class and you need to think, how do I use the knowledge of my professor or my lecturer in order to achieve what I want to achieve in life? And this is the point, and not just cruise into the grades and do the grade system, because you will get a good grade and you will get your first job. What's going to happen the next day? Okay, this is in terms of the student. I wanted to add that. In terms of the institute, I think it's my first presentation in my workshop. I talk about the difference between 1995 to 2023 in terms of money invested in research and design. And in 1995, 60% of the money, it was $600 billion. It's in the US. $600 billion was invested in R&D. 60% was in the industry, 30% in the academic, and 10% from the government. 2023, $2.5 trillion was invested in R&D, 80% in the industrial, 10% in the government, and 10% in the education. So it means that in almost 30 years, I wanted to find data for this year, so it will be 30, but I couldn't find data on 2025, obviously. So in 2023, the stage, the position of the academia on investing in research is not even a competition to the industry. We can't, probably the R&D budget for Amazon and Google and Facebook is bigger than all the budget that India Institute has for research. So in grants and whatever. So we need to understand as an institute that teaches and want to teach the next leaders how we can reinvent ourselves. And I believe that we can reinvent ourselves by providing tools that is not measured in the first day. Being entrepreneur, thinking outside the box and inside the box, with what we have, what the tools that you have, making those, building the next generation of researchers that we need to understand that the map is that most of the innovation comes out, most of the research comes out of the university and not inside of the university, this is a fact. Yeah.
You want to add to?
Okay, so let me add some context to what we spoke about. So I'll talk about some of the courses that I offer. So I am known that my courses are not the normal courses, and let me explain what it basically means. Students will either extremely hate my courses or extremely love my courses before or while going through them, because they are extremely painful. First part. But the second thing that I have realized is, and during the courses, the dean and director get a lot of complaints from my students that, whatever, we'll get into that once you understand what happens. But the thing that I appreciate about it and why I also go through that pain is, after the course, once the students are out in the industry, I keep getting emails from them. Even during the placements and all, I get emails from them that, hey prof, I attended your course and therefore I got this placement. Because in the interview when I spoke about this was what happened, and there are students, company comes with X salary offering and they got X plus something in the placement because of whatever, and they write an email on why it is, and I just forward that to the director, so that takes care of all the complaints. So let me talk about, there's a course, it's called Impact. There's a long full form to it, but that doesn't matter. It's a clearly project-based, industry-based course. Get the students. Of course, I also do the hard work of getting projects from industry. And the project could be something which students say simplest is digital marketing. So they say, yeah, digital marketing. So I get the projects, there's a pitching done, who will get what, there's a company representative, and I have to get some 100 projects and I have to get all the students and teams. And then the students have to give a proposal of what they'll achieve, and then they are measured on how they have achieved whatever they wanted to. So I'll use digital marketing as an easy example because that I hope everyone can relate to. There are other complicated things, and these are all live projects. So the students take the project and they give a proposal that I will increase the hit rate of their digital advertisement by 100%. If it is 2,000, I'll make it 4,000. If it is 10,000, I'll make it 20,000. So whatever, and they think that is ambitious, because my rule is it has to be ambitious enough. That's the only place that I intervene. And I said, this is not enough. You have to tell me that because of this hit rate, how much of additional revenue will be generated in the organization. Which basically means we take last 5 years revenue of the organization, and let us assume on an average it has increased 10% every year. Then I say up to 10% is happening without your effort. So to show me effort, you have to say whether your revenue of the company will increase 15% or 20% or whatever. And I don't decide the percentage depending on the industry and the product. The student may come and argue, sir, 15% will not happen, maybe 12% will happen. And if the company agrees, there's a company representative, I am fine till both of them agree. It cannot be less than 10% if it has increased 10% over the last 5 years. Are we clear? Simple target. And once that target is signed by the company, signed by the student, it is locked. At the end of the term after 3 months, basically we take the actual revenues of the company. If it has increased by 12% or more, so please understand, my grading is 12% is meeting targets, which is average. You get 50% marks. Because you promised 12%, you delivered 12%. You get 50% of the course marks. If you deliver more than that, depending on how higher others have gone, you can go up to 100%. If it is only 10% or if the revenues have gone below 10%, you get 0 marks in that component. And this component is 50% of the whole course credit. So I am sure you understand why they hate my course. Because the failure rate is there. It's not very high, but let me assure you, at least 1 or 2 groups, which is at least 5 to 10 students, will definitely get a 0 in my course. And they'll flunk. So, of course, IMs are nice. We allow 2 Fs over the 2 years. So, 1 F is guaranteed if you take my course. But the beauty is, not everyone fails. Please appreciate, everyone succeeds. But the point is, even the people who have failed, and that is what we heard in the morning, that, if you're a failed entrepreneur, we love you as an investor. Companies love these people because these people have tried something, done something, struggled with it, failed at it. And to be honest, companies hire them at good salaries. Because, and I'm sorry to say, like, people argue, why can't you just take the hit rate? The hit rate went up 1,000 times, the revenue didn't go up. I said, sorry. Even if the hit rate dipped but the revenue went up, I am fine with that. That is what ultimately counts. So that's an impact course. You have to understand, I always measure the impact. What is the impact is decided by the company. If the company says we want the customer satisfaction to go up, our footfall to go up, our revenue to go up, that there can be, it's not always money. Sometimes it's a shop and they say my footfall in the mall should go up. I'm fine, increase the footfall, show me that. And whatever can be measured. So it is a measurable output. The student has to ensure the measure, but the student has to commit before the course starts that this is what I will increase, and that is what they are measured on. And I believe it's an interesting innovation. It's painful, but at the end, it helps you in your placement and it helps you beyond placement. I hope you got the perspective of getting your promotions, making your career and going somewhere. Yeah.
I think you brought the live environment of work into the university, and I think that's what every member of the panel has been talking about. Perhaps I would like to now shift the focus of the conversation to something slightly different, which is the exceedingly fast pace of innovation that's happening in the industry. What has happened with the rollout of generative AI and the aggressive loss in jobs and the change in the nature of work, the kind of work that people do has changed substantially. How does management education work towards staying ahead of the curve? Because, at the end of the day, management is a discipline by practice. But today, the industry is far ahead of what we teach. We are always teaching something in post. So how do you think, education can step forward?
One of the challenges management education faced was in the late 90s, when we were asked to teach the course business ethics. Because of WorldCom, Enron and all the global financial irregularities, suddenly they said, what are these business schools doing? Why are they not teaching ethics? So every one of us scrambled and we put up a business ethics course. This in the past 30 years. And that's one of the points where I realized management education was trying to catch up with the trend rather than set the trend. Fortunately, in the case of sustainability, in the case of environmental issues, and in the case of AI, management education is setting the trend rather than following it. So we are aware of sustainability, and in fact, every school, every business school in the world takes sustainability very seriously, and they've incorporated it in their curriculum. Same with artificial intelligence. Just as it was making its presence felt in the world, every business school has latched onto it and said we have to do something about it. So the way business school responds to trends is a very interesting phenomenon to see how the business education is evolving. So if they are just responding in a knee-jerk way, like we did for ethics, or we're doing it in a proactive, progressive way, like we did for sustainability and artificial intelligence, that's a big difference.
I totally agree with the approach of if you can't beat them, join them, which is probably, I think, I don't want to talk about it like in a future wise, because I think it's a present. I think we're probably all those in the crowd, and the crowd today, 100% of them are using ChatGPT, Gronk, or whatever it is, or AI tools to provide presentation, pictures, LLM, etc. And this is the reality. And I think like if we look at it in a perspective of like hundreds of years, we're not special, because challenges are all the time. If it's in the industrial revolution, if it's the ethics that you mentioned, that I wasn't aware of it because I don't know if maybe it's different, was different in my country. But I think it's here, and I think in the end, especially for this room, when you talk about business, the economics change. Jobs getting lost, but new opportunities is coming. And as people who needs to work with people and need to make business happen, and none of the ChatGPT will help you with that. Deals are and businesses is between people and not from in the computers. And in the end, you need to feel the reaction. You need to analyze it. You need to have your instincts sharp enough to understand, like, okay, I can take another $100. I need to decrease the price. I need to give him a discount, or I need to make a collaboration with him in order to achieve my real goal. And I think this is something that it's a tool. It's like, probably our parents would say it about computers if they were here like 40 years ago or 30 years ago. So I don't think it's something that we need to be scared of. I think it's something that we need to embrace. I think it's something that will definitely, make people lose their jobs. I mean, it's going to happen. But it's going to make a new opportunity, and it's going to make our life, I don't know if easier, but different.
So perhaps the question that I'm trying to ask is that you're preparing people to occupy certain positions in organizations, and that structure is going to change completely with the introduction of technology. That means it's actually VUCA, right? You don't know what's going to come. So what are we going to do to get the students better prepared to get into situations and occupy positions that never existed before?
They need to know that they need to handle the unknown. Okay, I mean, they mentioned the keynote that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, no one would think that it will be a global pandemic and we will sit in our houses and anywhere in the world, and it will be so fast and so impactful. And I think this is a lesson for all of us, and this is a lesson that we need to be agile in our thinking, and we need to understand that we can't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We need to have a plan, to have a vision, to have a mission, but we need to adapt throughout the way in order to get it.
Jumping in quickly, of course, what Noel mentioned in his keynote speech, we have to train them to be entrepreneurial. They don't need to be entrepreneurs, but think like entrepreneurs, have entrepreneurial thinking. So that's what we have to do as institutions.
Yeah, so see, building on this, and I will talk at a very fundamental level. So the world is changing, technology is coming, and a lot of other things are coming. So, for example, there are at least 2-3 ways that I think management education has tried to deal with this, and then there are always new ways. So one of the things we often do is we say that, okay, new things are coming, so that is why we offer new courses, new electives. The course remains the same, but you have new electives. Nowadays there are electives on AI or whatever which come in, which is, I would say, a traditional solution to a novel problem, which is of course relevant, it stays. Having said that, the challenge is at twofold. One is what he correctly said is, we don't even know what's going to change. So even when you're doing courses on AI, as he correctly said, you're catching up with what has already happened. You didn't know DeepSeek hitting ChatGPT, for example, so on and so forth. So that is one challenge which is there, and therefore linking to entrepreneurial thinking, there are like 2-3 things that I try to do and I tell my students. So one of the things I am very clear about is that luck always favors those who are prepared. And I always give a 2x2 matrix to my students. So I am known again for using lots of 2x2s. And my thing is, on one hand is, you can be prepared or you can not be prepared. It is like if there's going to be a fire, you can be prepared or not prepared. And on the second hand is whether it happens or not. So whether that fire happens or not. So I have a fire extinguisher put up over there, and this hall has never had fire in the last 20, 30, 40 years. Does it mean I should throw out that extinguisher? Is one possibility. The second is, I don't have that extinguisher and the fire happens. It may be a small spark, and what do I do? So the point is, still that extinguisher is there. I am sure that the fire may happen once in whatever time, but when it happens, I'll deal with that. So the same thing is, are you prepared with your competence for the unexpected? And therefore, since it is unexpected, you have to, as a student, prepare yourself without asking, how is this going to be useful and relevant? Is this really going to happen when I go to corporate? Because till you say what is happening in the corporate today, I'll prepare for that, you are out of sync, you are still catching up, and what is going to happen, you are not prepared for that. So that's the first part. The second part that I see, so for example, I also teach a normal course which is called Organization Design and Structure. It's a core course. So I have to teach it how everyone teaches.
No fails there?
No Fs. So in that course, you can understand I have to teach the way everyone teaches it because it's a core course, it's a basic course. But then in every basic course, that's what I love, there's a project component. And my projects, of course, being me, will be what I give. So my rules are very simple. Students go and do the group work. My rule is I don't like anything that is downloaded, report, all that. My rule is you have to go and talk to 5 CXOs. Those CXOs may be of small company, big company, whatever they may be, finance, chief finance officer, CEO, whatever. You have to go and talk to 5 CXOs. And you have to go and ask them on what's happening in whichever industry they are and what are the trends they are seeing in future. I call it the future of work project. Because when you're talking design and structure, you have to talk about future of work. And then my students come having spoken to, so there are 5 students in a group, you have to go and talk to 5 CXOs and you have to figure it out. And how I ensure they have spoken is, after that you have to give me the email ID, I write an email thanking the CXO for giving the interview, and I should not get a revert which interview. Okay, so that's it. So the idea is now here, because I also don't know what's changing and what's changing in which industry and not. But the moment you go to and talk to the CXOs, that is where you hit, because they have a perspective on the future. They are trying to adapt, and of course you will ask them, what are you doing to adapt? What are you struggling with? What is not? It's an input for me, and it's also an input which helps me teach my next year course better. So I think this is the second part. The third part relating to AI particularly is, at IIM Bangalore, students are like gunning for consulting. And I tell them, what is consulting about? Consulting, at the end of the day, you're making a PPT and you're giving a report. And if during the course is over here, if you start using ChatGPT and AI to submit the reports that you have to submit in the courses, please understand, the people who are sitting in consult are your seniors, they are our alums. They will also figure this out, and then they'll say, why to hire you? The same report that you are submitting here, the ChatGPT or the whatever AI they use can generate over there also. So the more you find these shortcuts as students, the more you are ruining your own placements. Basic economics, basic sense. So I don't need to do some rocket science for this. So therefore I tell them, therefore go to good CXOs in your project. Get genuine interviews, give those reports, then the consult people will value you. Because of a side benefit, you can also tell them, I know 5 CXOs in the industry, and those CXOs will remember you. So this is my approach of keeping them upfront and also dealing with whatever technology comes in.
So okay, if I can jump in for 1 minute. Yeah. Donald Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense in the US and used a very popular term, known unknowns, unknown unknowns. So when we put a fire extinguisher in this room, we are preparing ourselves for the known unknown. That is the fire. And if you don't put the fire extinguisher, the fire department won't give us the permission to operate this building, so we're putting it. The unknown unknown is COVID. COVID happened 5 years ago. None of the industries were prepared for it because they've not seen what a pandemic is. They didn't have a fire extinguisher in the room to take care of COVID because it's an unknown unknown. So that's what in our education we need to be prepared for the students to be prepared for the known unknowns. Yes. In India, if you have to start a business, you have to deal with 14 departments. That's fine. That's a known unknown. But what are the unknown unknowns? If you can train them to do that also, then they'll be much better management students.
Thank you. I think that is very interesting. Taking this further, a little further, I understand that there is a deep focus on placement. And therefore, it's not information and knowledge, information and education, which leads to knowledge. Given that there is a democratization of information and also democratization of education in terms of the online courses and a lot of other programs that are happening, including most of the universities now offering a lot of free courses online, right? How should management education change to make it more relevant for students who attend classes in person?
Well, that's a good question. I think, I mean, in one hand, some of the courses are good to have online. Like I feel the hybrid mode is benefiting some of the courses. Even my courses, some of them, if it are like a 13 classes, and I feel like the first four, which is more like knowledge based, it's much easier for me to do it over online than to meet in person and do it. Again, I think I believe what I mentioned before that it's like AI. It's like it's a tool. Okay, you can use it. You can not use it. You can. I mean, you need to understand how you use it and the benefit your program. I think what we have. I mean, the online courses. It's kind of. I mean, it's challenging the universities, and it's doing globalization, but in education, which is a good part because it means that in the end it will level up the level of the education and that you will provide for your student. So I think what the universities and the colleges can do is really is give the labs, give the real life experience, give the collaboration between multidisciplinary departments. If I go to a university and I have a business school, but I also have engineering, and I also have medicine, and I also have social studies, so I can learn from them aspects that I will never get online. I mean, I can get online, but I need to understand by myself that I need to get it, which is it's very hard. So I think this is what the universities around the world, by the way, because it's for everyone, need to understand that they need to benefit from having such a variety of departments. And this is my 2 cents about it.
Okay, so when I talk about democratization of education, I'll talk about it at least 3 levels. And I'll start from the smallest. So, for example, at IIM Bangalore, I teach a course for working executives. We have a Friday, Saturday working executive MBA program. And I'm specifically talking about this because, as we just talked a while ago, that in our normal MBA program, we often have students who have some experience, but not up to that level. The working executives come with 10, 15 years of experience, so they know the field. So I have a course for them on managing people and performance, and it has a course outline, and I give it to them. But then in the first session itself, I send them a survey before the first session. And I ask them, what are the challenges you have faced or are currently facing in your work? And they have 10, 15 years of work, so they are in a good position, and they say, oh my God, in my work, and everyone has challenges, trust me. And I get all of that in. And then in my first class, I go and present that this is the summary of what I got from all of you. And out of this, there are these 4 or 5 things that I don't think are what I can talk about, but then 95% of what I get is what I can talk about. And then I say that, okay, this is our curriculum, and we had some case studies, we had something, and if everyone agrees to it, instead of talking about all of this, we'll have the same topic, but we'll talk about what you all shared with me. And in the working executive program, I don't need to send them to CXOs because they know what happens. Their assignment is very simple. They have to write in detail what are the challenges. Well, pick up one of those major challenges, write up about it, and submit a write-up to me by the middle of the course. So by the middle of the course, I have a detailed write-up on what their challenges are. And I think this is the democratization as within the class level, because then we talk about what are their problems. They choose what they want to focus more on, less on, and by and large it covers whatever I wanted to cover. There will be conflict, there will be negotiation, there will be motivation issues, there will be leadership issues, which are what I deal with. So that is within the class. The second thing at an institute level, so at IIM Bangalore, and all good institutes have this, we have this option where students can do what we call a course of contemporary study, where 1 or 2 students come and work with a faculty on a topic of their choice. So it's not like a classroom of 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 students. Those 2 students come, and I always enjoy doing that. So which is where students come and say that, Prof, I want to study this topic or learn about this, but there's no course, and is not in the curriculum that we have. And I said, good, tell me what you want to learn about, and the idea is I'll learn along with you. And then we have to spend those 30 hours in class, and assignment and report is submitted to the dean, and all that administration is in place. But I feel this is another level of democratization at the institute level, where you allow students to actually come up with topics that are not even on your curriculum, but which are of course relevant for management education. And that is again another place where the cutting edge things come, because students come up with, sir, this is happening in the industry, what's it going to do, gig work, this, that, blah, blah. The third level is, how do we democratize this education, which kind of is often centralized with some elite institutes, and we are very elitist in keeping it with us, and how does it become available to the larger world? And I think that is where a lot of institutes globally have put up. If you were to Google it, you'll find their open material available globally, like they've been putting it for emerging institutes. Like in India, IMD also has IMDX, and we have Coursera, and we have SWAYAM, which is a government portal in India, where you find a lot of courses by all the IIMs and IITs, which are available to everyone. So I think that government initiative of putting SWAYAM in India, and I'm sure there will be similar things in other countries, is a huge effort, where every IIM and every IIT and every top institute puts up something, and and you don't have to pay for it. You won't get a certificate if you don't pay, but that's fine. You still get the learning. You have to pay some amount, which to my mind is affordable on SWAYAM and other portals. And I think these are big steps in democratization of education, and works at all three levels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are running short of time, so I've just been given a time check. I would then open the questions to the audience, and will you ask? Yeah. So we'll have the audience post some questions, and then we can move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone can raise hand if you want.
This is the time, yes, that you ask questions.
This is where we learn from you.
And now we need to say that the great is there.
Before that, first of all, thank you so much, all the distinguished panelist members. Thank you so much, sir, for moderating the session. And it's a truly enlightening discussion we have just experienced on innovations in management education, rich with forward-thinking perspectives from the USA, Australia, Israel were shared thoroughly, along with India, which has truly shed light on the future of learning in the business world, or if I may, in this VUCA world. Now, sir, we have a few questions from the audiences, and I'll be asking you, each one of you. So the first question goes to Dr. Rajiv, and the question is, sir, we witness unprecedented advancements in artificial intelligence and digital learning. How do you perceive these innovations reshaping the landscape of traditional management education? Also, in what ways do they redefine the roles of educators and learners? Sir, please.
Good question, and probably this was the same question which was put up for management educators when the first computer was introduced. The same question would have been put up to management educators when internet was introduced. So today we are again at the same crossroads, and management education doesn't mean that these are all the techniques and technologies will change. They will be still facilitating management education. So whether it's internet, whether it's just a computer, or whether it's artificial intelligence, those are tools to impart that knowledge. So the process of gaining knowledge and using that knowledge to start thinking entrepreneurially, that process remains the same. Artificial intelligence is a tool which will make it easier, probably. Easier for this generation. Probably for next generation, artificial intelligence might be too outdated. They might come up with something far more advanced, which they think, what is this thing called AI? You've not even heard of it because you moved on for, but still the management education will remain the same. The concept of entrepreneurial thinking and concept of thinking of the management ways of managing companies, all that will remain in the same pattern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very well explained. Thank you.
The next question we have is for you, Dr. Rustin. In a rapidly evolving business landscape, learning doesn't stop at graduation. Should B schools actively stay connected with their alumni to provide ongoing learning, particularly in areas like innovation and emerging management trends? And how can continuous engagement with alumni help B schools remain relevant and add long-term value to their graduates?
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is yes, and the longer answer, I think students will. Most of you in the crowd will embrace the time that you have in college, probably only 5 years from now, and the time that you have to take for yourself and to study, and it's a network. I mean, you get the chance to meet your people that is going to be in multiple sectors. Some of you are going to be in the defense, in the finance, in the healthcare, and I think this is a point that you all share together. And I think having alumni programs is super important. I think it's also important for the institute because it's again providing the contact between the industry, which is the alumni, and the university. And I think also for yourself on the selfish level, because you can never know. I mean, probably some of you in the crowd are going to be entrepreneurs. Some of you is going to be managers. Some of you in different sectors that might be will benefit each other in the future. So I mean, from my experience, I think from my bachelor, master, and PhD, I stayed in contact with people that I study with. Not all of them, obviously, because it's hard. but mostly in the MBA, because it's a degree that is a very hands-on degree. It's a degree that all of you is going to. I mean, probably most of you is going to manage departments or companies or corporates. So in one point of life, you're going to benefit from it. So I think it's very important.
Thank you, sir.
And the third and the last question for you, Dr. Apurva. And this question might be a bit intriguing for the audience maybe, but not for you as you are experts in your respective fields. So, the question goes, in recent years, sir, we have witnessed the rise of several non-traditional business schools that operate without government or accreditation body recognition, yet they have gained significant visibility among recruiters and students alike. With a growing number of such institutions, do you believe their presence could undermine the credibility of established B schools? Additionally, how can traditional B schools stay ahead of the curve and continue to differentiate themselves in the evolving landscape?
Okay, that's an interesting question because I have my own views. You may agree or disagree to that. I think the emergence of what you call these non-traditional schools, which are not even recognized, is a very good thing from an entrepreneurial perspective because this is actually disrupting the market. And the fact that these schools are able to attract often better placements, good placements, is an ecosystem feedback to the traditional B schools that we need to do a better job at what we're supposed to do because as an entrepreneur, if you're offering a product and if someone else can do it better than you, then that's the entrepreneurial opportunity. And you have only two choices. One is either you do something better than them or you learn from them and follow them. And as you said, what should the traditional schools do? I think one of the things, to put it bluntly, is the traditional schools need to shed the tradition and become non-traditional. Because by being non-traditional does not mean that you shed the accreditation that you have. So like I was discussing on some of the things and we can talk offline, is the idea is you still follow the norms and all, but you don't become rigid about it and you have to find creative ways of how can you build. The fact that these non-accredited schools are able to get better placements is the fact that they are imparting skills which are relevant on the floor. Their exams may not be accredited. And to a large extent, this is also a feedback to the students that if you are in the traditional schools, let us say for example, and the traditional school focus on a lot of administration and exams and norms and criteria for how you will be evaluated, so on and so forth. And if as a student also you follow the same system, you will end up where the traditional school is ending up. But when you are out there in the market, you are competing with the talent, the war for talent, and these are people from all kinds of schools or even those who have not attended schools. And if you want to be better than them, the only thing that is going to help you is your learning and your skills and being prepared for the unprepared. So entrepreneurial thinking is also one of those skills. And therefore my suggestion is, don't just rely on institutes to do everything. As a student, you better become non-traditional even if you are in a traditional school. That's what's going to help you.
Well said, sir. Thank you so much. I had a question. So should I go with the guy without the coat with the question? No. So I had seen a survey recently which said that most Gen Zers, and most of our students are Gen Z right now, do not want to become managers. And I was looking back at our time, without telling you the generation, we would put both our hands up when somebody asked us the question. So I tested that in a class, and only 50% of them said they wanted to become managers, which is in line with that survey. And the survey said, because they don't want to take the additional headache, because the returns are not the same. So theoretically, meaning if you look at that survey, the customer or the learner has changed from the time maybe we were learners. So how do we transcend that boundary?
Interesting question, Mr. Anil, because if they don't want to be managers but they want to be straight away CEOs, I'll be concerned. Okay, they're not.
This is the biggest headache, to be a CEO.
So they don't want to take that additional responsibility of managing. So does that mean that they want to be good team players rather than team leaders? If the attitude is changing, probably this is in line with the trends of more students wanting to be social entrepreneurs, where they want to do something for the society, so that's why they want to get into entrepreneurship, not just for the sake of making money. So in your case, the example which you cited, that they don't want to be, we don't want to train them to be managers. We're training them to be leaders. That's what it says, shaping future leaders. So a leader doesn't need to be a manager. A leader can be a very good leader without being a manager. The traditional, as Apurva is talking about the traditional pathway to leadership in many traditional organizations is you have to be a manager. Manager, general manager, then president, whatever title it is. So if they don't want to follow that and still be a leader, so be it. We have to train them to get into that. That's my take on that.
I definitely would like to hear from the OB.
I was fearing that, but okay. See, my view is very clear. So, in line with what he said, the difference between, and sorry to put it in very tactical terms, a manager, so I always say, because this is a question that comes up, I say managers are the people who do things right. They do it efficiently, they do it in, 100% efficiency, cost saving, blah, blah. They manage things, they do things right. Leaders are those who do the right things. And there's a difference between two. You may do the wrong thing very effortlessly and you may struggle doing the right thing. So when I say, and I'll just take 2 more minutes on this. So the idea is, if you want to be a leader, then to be honest, you need to overcome the mindset of a manager. You have to break away from that. And in my classes I teach, you can read up for yourself, but I always contrast it with effectiveness versus efficiency. A manager is focusing on efficiency. A leader is focusing on effectiveness. Efficiency is, to put it in the terms that we have been talking, how do I score more marks in an exam? With the shortest effort, putting shortcuts that we are all aware of. How do I get a good placement without necessarily developing all the skills? How do I get into whatever? This is all efficient. Is it effective? Sorry, no. Because you get that job and then from the first day onwards you are struggling. Because in the interview you said, yeah, I'll handle this. It is easier said than done. When you have to handle it, where the rubber meets the road, like you take a sales job and you say, yeah, I can make a nice PPT. The nice PPT will not sell anything. Someone has to put money where you put your mouth. So I always distinguish between this effectiveness and efficiency, and at least in my classes, I always say it is, so again, 2 by 2, efficient, inefficient, effective, ineffective. The best box, of course, is where you are efficient and effective. That's a tough one, let me put it bluntly. And therefore, a lot of people fall into the box where you are neither efficient nor effective. So those people anyways get chucked out, don't get into MBA schools, there's an entrance, there's a GDPI, whatever. Now there are the other two boxes where the choices have to be made, please understand. The other two boxes are, I am efficient and not effective versus effective and not efficient. The efficient guys will clear all the exams. They are very efficient at doing that thing. They know how the PPT can be submitted, how the report can be generated at the 11th hour. If the submission is at 10 a.m., 9 a.m., this person comes and a report is submitted with all the jazz and all that is needed. They know how to use all the AI and much more. But the first thing that you have to learn is how to be effective, which means do the right thing. And therefore, I respond because most of the audience, barring the front rows, you are doing things right in all your courses and all your grades. I want you to go back and reflect today on what is the right thing that you should be doing. Should you be focusing on exam or the learning or the skill or the impact? So that is where, if you don't want to, so my worry is, like when you ask them in the class, everyone wants to be a leader. And then when the rubber meets the road, everyone is looking at efficiency. How do I do the minimum? Which is what I said. So that is my take on it. So let me take one more minute with your permission, since you have asked this. I teach a course on leadership. And again, this is not the normal course. This is my course. So in this course, there are groups, they do work. We have cases on Nelson Mandela, on Gandhiji, and whatever. I'll pick any leader that you want. So I'm democratic about which leader you want to study. But the point is, teams make presentations. And there are teams of 5, 6, 7 people. Before the class starts in the first session itself, each team has to choose a leader. And the kind of the leader has to contest. I leave it to the teams how they decide leaders. Some do voting, some do only one guy stood up. Some people force, nobody stood up, you have to be the leader. Now the interesting thing is, how are marks given? The marks are given after each presentation, and there are multiple presentations. I do an individual online survey from all students. Each follower rates the leader on their leadership qualities. And the leader rates each follower on their contribution to the activity that was done, the PPT that was done. Whatever rating they have given will be their marks. So if the leader says that this follower contributed 100% to the activity, that student gets 100 marks. In the case of leader, since there are 5 followers, it is an average of this. If all the followers say his leadership skills are bad, the leader gets 0. If all the followers say that the leader was great, 100%, the leader. So please appreciate, getting 100% for the leader is pretty tougher than the follower getting 100%. So that is part of why people. And then students have written to the dean director saying that the faculty is shirking his activity of grading maths. You understand? But my point is, if you are unable to deliver a good PPT and at the same time get 100% from your followers, trust me, you are not going to be successful in organizations as a leader, whether you are an entrepreneur or something else. So this is where I look at doing the right thing instead of getting the PPT done somehow. Thank you.
Thank you to President Ali Khalif sir for bringing such a relevant question, and a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists for such clear explanation and astuteness. Your expertise has given us a deeper understanding of how management education is evolving to meet the demands of a dynamic world.
We also extend our sincere gratitude to our moderator, Dr. Krishna Kumar Nandur, for skillfully moderating this discussion and ensuring a rich and engaging conversation. I would now request Dr. Krishna Kumar to felicitate the distinguished panelists as a token of appreciation. Sir, please. Can we have a huge round of applause for all the distinguished panelists?
To our audience, thank you for your enthusiastic participation. We hope this discussion has sparked new ideas and reflections on the future of management education.
Stay with us as we continue with the next session of this exciting conference. Panelists, you are now invited to proceed for lunch at Eastern Lawn. For the rest of our audience, we look forward to welcoming you for a surprise at 2 p.m. at MS Oberoi Auditorium on 4th floor for the masterclass. See you all there. Thank you.